everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. This is the Redmen Originals podcast. I'm Steve Hoare, Chloe Bloxham and Dan Clubb with us as usual. And a special guest today, the wonderful Abi Rudkin, Gen Z extraordinaire, as we've just found out. We were trying to decide before the show. I was trying to figure out what we are. Gen Z's for sure. What are we?
I'm definitely not Gen Z, but I'm also not millennial like you just suggested you were.
I don't know what I am.
I have no idea.
How old's millennials?
Well, I'm 33, so someone do the math. 1991 I was born. So somebody
1991.
91,
so
yeah.
you're a millennial then.
Am I? Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was a thing because we're the ones who are like, we were the first people to have the internet.
That's so far.
We're the first people to like not have the internet and then have the internet. Like we crossed those. These have grew up only with the internet. We were the generation that didn't have it. You did.
I'm not sure about that.
You did.
As a kid, I did not.
Yeah, but as a
it was available to you.
Yeah, it was.
We had like dial-up and shit. Yeah. It was
when I was a
to
kid, we still had like a big grey telly that had like static coming off it. And
I used to actually go out as a kid. Like, you used to have to knock on my door if I wanted to do something.
Simpler times.
That's like Gen Alpha though, isn't it? Are they the new one?
I've got no idea.
Either
way, whatever you are.
They're the new one. I think they're like the babies now.
Yeah, absolutely. Go and check out the guys' Instagrams for the reason why. That was the whole conversation. It was around Instagrams and filters and comments on Instagrams and absolutely, it was that. We're going to be speaking, of course, about Liverpool's last week or so. Cup success, cup failure, unfortunately. And then in the second half, so we're going to look ahead to a massive 15 days in which Liverpool play 5 Premier League games. Absolutely huge. As the Reds hopefully look to win a Premier League title. Before we go, very quick round of what everyone's been up to. Dan, you spoke to Owen Beck the other day, Liverpool left back. How was Owen? Was he in good spirits?
Yeah, he was. Very pleasant kid as well, actually. Yeah, enjoyed that chat. Spoke very highly of Andy Robertson, as you might imagine. Obviously spent last season up at Dundee, got in the Scottish Premiership Team of the Year up there, and now he's having a very good campaign alone at Blackburn. So yeah, like I say, nice lad. Boss will speak to him, and yeah, the interview a little bit out on YouTube now, and yeah, the rest is on Redmen Plus.
Go and check it all out. It's fabulous, absolutely. Chloe, you had the highs of being at Anfield Thursday night like myself, and you also had the lows of a long old trip to Plymouth yesterday and back. You look sensational considering you spent the vast majority of the day on a bit of a shed of a coach. How are you? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm still recovering. The coffee was needed. But yeah, honestly, I do not care. That's the only way I can put it. It was an alright day out. I'd have preferred it to be closer to my house, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't, so you just got to get on with that.
Yeah, some things aren't close to your house. That's a metaphor for life, I think.
I've always said that.
It's that famous saying. It's that famous saying, some things just aren't close to your house. And if it isn't a saying, it should be one, because
it speaks true, rings true.
Some things are just far away, and some things are close to you. Abs, what have you been up to? Because I saw recently you had your new painting.
Oh yeah.
You've been selling prints for that one as well. So where can people find your stuff, and what have you been up to this week?
Oh yeah, so I finished my new painting, Unity. I literally just did all the players in their little huddle in front of the car.
Down selling your...
Yeah, all the time.
So I did that, and then I've been selling prints of it, but I've sold out of them now, but I will get more in next week. Yeah, they're on my Etsy, Art by Abigail R. But yeah, that's all.
Art by Abigail R.
Art by Abigail R.
Oh, okay.
R for not double R.
I was saying you've really SEO'd that one, but
I know it is art.
Trademark.
Art by Abigail R. There you go. Go check Abby's stuff out. It's fantastic, including the t-shirt that you're wearing, and of course Dan's got the hoodie on as well.
I've got a different one.
Oh no, sorry, you got the Mo Salah, the Egyptian king. That we got them as well. So yeah, fantastic plan. A bit like Liverpool, we've made some changes here, as you can see. No Paul, no Chris. Hopefully we perform better abs than Liverpool's backups did yesterday, because it couldn't have been worse. I'll start with you straight away, Abby. Chloe just mentioned, we went from the euphoria of Thursday, which was fantastic. We all had a jolly good time watching Liverpool get to a final. A few days later, it all comes crashing down to earth. Have you been able to compartmentalise the whole thing? Really, the decisions that Arne Slot made, and of course what it means going forward, but also the fact that Liverpool aren't in the FA Cup anymore. Have you been able to rationalise it all?
Yeah, do you know what? I think I was pretty calm about it anyway, to be honest. It's not like I wanted us to go out, but I just didn't feel like it was the end of the world. I think out of all of those games, I wasn't really expecting us to be the shock of the weekend, but we were. But at the end of the day, it just didn't really matter. There was just no cohesion there, was there? And some of the players like Chiesa and Elliott, they just didn't step up to the plate, really, did they? When it was probably an opportunity for them to show why they should be getting more minutes in the likes of the Premier League and the Champions League, and they just really didn't do that for us, did they? So it's just not the end of the world. I'm trying not to freak out about it. I think you put most of those players into the first team, 1 or 2, and they perform fine. I just think throwing them all together like that, Gomez getting injured pretty early on, I think that probably took a little bit of seniority out of it. Is that the word? Seniority, yeah. I think that took it out of it a little bit, and everything just felt a little bit immature then. And then there wasn't really anyone on the bench to come and pick that up, really, was there? Bar Nunes, and you know.
I suppose, Chloe, something's got to give, because for a lot of teams who go out to the League Cup early, then they can afford to maybe go a little bit stronger. The fact that Liverpool play Thursday, get themselves to a final, which, by the way, means the Aston Villa game comes forward into this vlog that we're going to speak about in part 2, that something has got to give. There are too many games anyway, and the manager's decided Thursday to Sunday into Wednesday against Everton, it's just too much. I have to do something. He's very much took the drastic option of not even having the lads on the bench, or he's just gone, have a weekend off, spend some time with your families. He spoke about that in his press conference as well, treating these fellas right. They've got families and got lives to get on with. The ends will justify the means. If A, Liverpool win the League Cup, and B, if Liverpool beat Everton on Wednesday, I think it'll be relatively quickly forgotten about.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and criticise it, because you can't have it both ways. I literally didn't want any first team players near that. I mean, I say first team, the starting 11 who's banked on to start. I didn't really want any of them near the Plymouth game, because I can't sit here and fume if then they don't show up in the league or the Champions League or whatever, if they've played too many games. I can't fume if one of them would have got injured, like Joe Gomez did. It just takes a freak incident and something can derail the entire season. I am very much in the bracket of the least of my priorities is that FA Cup game against Plymouth. The other month, before Abi and Dan's left on loan, I was talking about starting him up top. And yet we started with Chiesa, you had Elliott, you had Diaz, you had Jota. There was enough players on that pitch, more important things at play. And hopefully, in the long term, actually having a weekend off will help us and give us time to recover and recharge. Because like you've said there, we're in a title race, and that is emotionally draining and physically draining. We are in the Champions League still. We're now in a League Cup final. So I can't sit here and say to Arne Slot, rest all the players, and then when Liverpool play crap and he's rested them all, fume. The other thing I will say on it is, I don't think he realised just how tough the Championship is in terms of battles, but he's still learning. How many times this season have we seen him learn? And I will bring it up and reference it every single time. The first international break, he decided to play the South Americans after coming back, and he realised, actually, I can't do that. They travel too far. It's far too intense. It's too tough of a league to do that. And since then, he's learned from it. I think this is a learning curve for him. He's realised just how hard it is to beat other tiers of the English pyramid, and how much of a battle it is. And he just got the starting 11 wrong in terms of the battle. But yeah, I'm not going crazy about it.
I suppose, well, Dan, Chloe says he got it wrong, but you speak to him, the press spoke to him after the game, we didn't. And he did say, he doesn't regret it. Like, he had to make this decision. He just, and it's mad because, like I say, 5 games in 15 days, and the Premier League games, it's really tough. If you make that 6 games in, 18 or so days, it's probably unsustainable now. So I think his thinking will be, I picked a good enough team to beat Plymouth, and he just didn't show up. That's kind of on the players. Of course, he's the manager, he'll take some responsibility. But I don't think you can say, I've seen Jurgen Klopp pick way worse teams in the FA Cup than that. I've seen him literally go on holiday and play his kids, against Shrewsbury Town. He had that replay and he thought I'm off. So Arne Slot, it's like this, he disrespected it, or he took it lightly. I think he prioritised this as the 4th most important thing on his list. And ultimately, the players he chose, who he wanted to perform, didn't do that on the day.
That's what it boils down to, and not just all the players, but the senior players in particular really didn't step up, did they? Let's be honest. I think the rationale and the reasoning behind his selection is absolutely spot on, and nobody can really question that, because it is, 4th on the list of priorities. Certainly, when you find your way in a Carabao Cup final like we've done, but it was the manner of the performance and defeat. I can make peace with getting eliminated from the FA Cup. I struggle to make peace with us doing that and playing that poorly with some of the quality and the calibre of players that we had at our disposal. Certainly when you look at the attacking line, because Chloe's right, like if you make wholesale changes and it is, 9, 10 academy lads, like it was in the Shrewsbury game, as you mentioned there, and you do get beat. We actually managed to win that game, own goal, wasn't it? But still, and you get beat by Plymouth, you go, okay, clearly Liverpool have just, thrown the towel in, they didn't want the FA Cup, whatever. The fact that we had such quality on the pitch and yet still put in such an abject performance, that's what I couldn't get my head around. That's what annoyed me yesterday, because I was livid by the end of it, and still am a little bit, to be honest with you, because albeit, not many of my eggs are in the FA Cup basket this season, I still want us to win that game, because you never know. You get Cardiff at home, with all due respect to Cardiff at home in the next round, all of a sudden you're one step away from quarterfinals, semi-finals, etc. So why not, I guess? And I'm very much of the nature that you don't sort of pass up the opportunity to win any piece of silver at Liverpool Football Club, the FA Cup included. So whilst I can, square it off in my head and be like, there's bigger fish to fry further down the line, in the grand scheme of things, with all the fixture pilot that we've got coming up, it might well be a blessing in disguise at some point. Doesn't take away from my annoyance at the performance.
No, and like I say, mate, I think so in the FA Cup, when everyone's talking about like trophies and quadruples and whatever, I think to win a domestic cup, and I'll come to you Abs on this one, for the first couple of rounds you need your fringe players and your young players and your squad players to just win a couple of games. Liverpool, for example, in the League Cup, I was at that West Ham game, and like Tyler Morton plays well, but the manager doesn't break, he leaves Mo Salah out to start and everything, the usual things he asks, like Kwanzaa to play a centre half a little bit more, and you get to like around maybe the quarters, and that's when you go, right, we'll introduce the big guns. Liverpool actually in the League Cup waited quite late until they got to, I think it was the semi-finals, before they went really relatively strong against Tottenham. The manager's probably hoping the same thing there, isn't he? Like, if I put Jota, Chiesa, Elliott, Endo, Gomez, although he goes off injured, Timmercast, Kelleher, these are guys who actually haven't played that much, so we're fine, we'll get the minutes in the legs, and they're good enough to win. But on the day, too many of them just didn't turn up. And ultimately, that's what happens. If you don't turn up against the side and you give them a little bit of something to hold on to, you can get punished.
Yeah, I mean, we had more than enough firepower there to be winning that game. We should be scoring at least one goal there, and we just don't do that. But I think, like you have said, I think Plymouth sort of saw this as maybe like their own cup final, with them being very bottom of their league. They've lost 15 games. I think they just probably felt as though they needed to show the fans that they actually had a little bit of fight left in them, and they were great. They were absolutely brilliant, to be honest, and they deserved that penalty. Obviously, it was very clear and obvious, but I think if we stay in that competition, it gives more games just for the likes of those players, for the likes of Chiesa, the likes of Elliott, and I think this is where an issue might come about for Slot now, where they are coming to him saying, where am I going to get game time now? I mean, obviously now we're in the Carabao Cup final, you're probably not going to see a lot of them. You start 11 there, now we're out of a big cup, and the Champions League's getting serious now, and we're in the running for the Premier League, so a lot of these players now are going to be wondering when they're going to get any game time, and I think the FA Cup was the opportunity for them to be able to start games for Liverpool, but that's their own fault really, because they didn't perform. That's on them for not being able to carry us through. That was probably going to be their competition, and
not just that, you play well in that, you have a right to then go to the manager and
go, in the conversation,
I should start or get more minutes in these other competitions. But it turns out that not a single one of those frontline players, like that game, it was so compact, and Plymouth was so well drilled. They followed every man, they left no spaces. So in that situation, what you need one of your wingers or one of your attacking players to beat a man and take someone out the game. And what happened was, time and time again, Diaz, Chiesa, Jota, any of them were stood one-on-one with a lad, and they just couldn't get past them. They couldn't beat them. At no point. The first touch was horrendous all over the place. But like, when you're standing up a man, bear in mind, this is, the bottom of their league. You are, let's say, Chiesa, like a Euros winner, he could not beat his man. Luis Diaz could not beat his man. And time again, Plymouth just won those individual battles, and that was the problem. The
frustrating thing for me is that obviously that centre-forward position's clearly up for grabs at the minute for Liverpool. Like that Gakpo-Diaz thing isn't really working as well as it was at the start of the season. Núñez and Jota had opportunities there to show why they should be the ones starting them games, and neither of them have come forward. Like, obviously we're rumoured to be looking at a new one now in the summer, and they haven't really showed us there why they should be keeping that place.
Opportunity is the word, and I've said it a couple of times immediately after the incident last day in the match. Like I said, that was a huge chance for them lads to show why they should be in the reckoning for Premier League and Champions League style. It's passed them by, and I don't know where the opportunities come again. And what's most frustrating from a Liverpool, just a more general Liverpool sense for me, is that I think the Carabao Cup has been quite handy in keeping some of these lads sharp, and then when we have called upon them, i.e. Nunes from the bench against Brentford, they've come up good, you know what I mean? Because they've had minutes in the legs in Carabao Cup games. Same with Harvey Elliott, and certainly Wataru Endo's been a benefactor of that too. That's gone now. So we're going to have a lot of lads just... training's one thing, obviously, but match sharpness, fitness. You can't replicate it. So the good chance now, you like Chiesa, Harvey Elliott falls into this bracket as well. I don't know where the minutes come from, and if we do need to call upon them in mid-April, they might not have played much football between now and then. So that's the biggest shame of all this. The FA Cup and potential trophy at the end of it is one thing, but actually not getting minutes in some legs now for a couple of months feels like a bit more of an issue, really.
Yeah, I think you can talk about obviously like game congestion and all that, and us having too many games, but Mo Salah was probably on his couch having a cup of tea last night. Do you know what I mean? We've got the squad there to do that, but they just haven't stepped up.
I suppose, Dan, to go back to it, it is worth mentioning the context of why Liverpool play a more of a weakened team. They got, not just what's to come. They had a big game on Thursday, and they get through. And we are in a cup final. Like the quad talk, we can knock that on the head. I think that's a major. Don't worry about that anymore. Like it's mad because that has literally never ever been done. It's tough. There's a real tough thing that for that to happen ever in the first place. I don't think we should let Sunday really take away too much from the fact that the Liverpool got the job done on Thursday and they were brilliant as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's hopefully it's nothing more than a blip, a blemish on what could be an otherwise incredible first season under Arne Slot as well. And yeah, you're right. Thursday was so, you used the word before, so euphoric. It was so Liverpool were just utterly relentless. It was one of the better performances actually. I know Spurs were tame, might be being kind to them, to be honest with you. They never really laid a glove. I was fascinated by their approach or lack thereof approach to it. It was just on a hide into nothing for me. Spurs, if they come and try and park the bus and sort of have what they hold at Anfield and then never really get into any sort of gear, then all the best lads. But Liverpool were ruthless, efficient, all the best parts of what we've seen from Liverpool this season, I think it's fair to say, in the course of 80, 90 minutes, whatever we needed to really do. But yeah, Thursday was a real high point for me this season. Massive shame about yesterday, obviously, but again, I think depending on how we react to it starting on Wednesday, we can quickly forget about what was a pretty horror showing down in the West Country.
And I suppose, Abby, if you're looking at this, Arne Slot in his season so far, and that when there have been blemishes and there have been blips, Liverpool tended to react well. Even you go back to the first leg of that Tottenham game, they managed to turn that one around, obviously quite comfortably on Thursday. I think if you'd have said to Arne Slot, you're going to go to the FA Cup in the 4th round, but you're going to be in the League Cup final. Again, he wouldn't publicly say it, but I think I'd probably take that. He wouldn't want to go out in the manner they did, but given, again, the fixture, how intense the whole thing is going to be over the next few weeks, I think secretly they're going, yeah, you know what, I'll take that. If you're going to go out the FA Cup, go out early. The last thing I thought last year, for example, Liverpool get into the quarters or around the last six, whatever it was, when they got beat by Man United. It was a bit later in the year. They've used half their energy and then get beaten extra time. Why not if you're going to go out, he'll be saying go out early. It's better than dragging along, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, what good comes out of losing football games, really? But that's one thing with Slot, is we've just sort of carried on and been able to be all right by the end of it. With Slot, he just seems to be fine. Nothing seems to... I mean, he still talks about losing at Anfield in that Forest game every single day, pretty much. That still lives rent-free in his head. So he clings on to these losses and makes changes with them. And obviously, that's just not our starting 11. You look at that Spurs game, and that's the real Liverpool. That's the ones that are going for the title. We may need to call upon some of these players that played against Plymouth, but the real team are those ones that beat them 4-0 and came back from 1-0 down from that first leg and were able to put in that shift and score 4 goals at Anfield. And that's the real team that I'm going into the Everton game with, just that Spurs game in my mind, because that Plymouth game is just not a reflection of who we've been this season and who we actually are as a team. It was doing me head in on the commentary, because they were like, yeah, here's the best team in the world playing against Plymouth, getting beaten. That wasn't the best team in the world. That's not Liverpool's starting 11. They've got to spin that narrative,
haven't they?
Yeah.
Match of the cup and all.
It was the quarter final, by the way, Man United. Not
yeah.
It was the quarter.
So
I was thinking, looking at the...
We lost.
Couldn't possibly.
It was the quarters.
Because
No, it
Coventry was the next round, and I was fuming once that draw got made.
It was the quarters. Man United, congratulations. They obviously went on and won it. But I suppose Dan, just to look back at, like I say, what was a bit of a crazy up and down week for us. I think, I'm trying to think the best way to say this, like, hangover, I just don't suggest there would be one because it was such a different team. And by the way, you talk about a changed team. There was also like the young players who played, for example, some of them, it was just maybe a game too early or whatever for them. For example, because the injury, for example, Tyler Morton would have played. He's injured. Liverpool loaned out Abi and Dan. It was almost like the youngsters. It was the younger youngsters, if that makes sense. I mean, it felt like the fringe players and then some real young kids in there as well. I think, and again, I don't want to put words in my mouth, I think the squad as a whole will be able to go, you know what, that isn't gonna knock us. We're much more mentally resilient than perhaps like all Liverpool teams in the past would it be.
You'd like to think so, yeah, given the personnel. I think we just made reference there to United game in what was obviously the quarter-final. That was very much the first team crop, so it was easy to see how that could potentially bleed into and derail what we were trying to do elsewhere in different competitions. This, we should be able to sort of draw the line under it and say, well, that wasn't anything to do with us, just wash your hands of it. You like Alexis McAllister, Ryan Gravenberch, Van Dijk, etc., etc. That feels a much more straightforward thing to get right in your head. I certainly hope that's the case. Yeah, as for the young stuff, Jayden Dan's is literally injured back at the Axe now as well, so he hasn't even gone on his loan just yet, which is a huge shame for him. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we might have seen a bit more, if this is even the right turn of phrase, like the senior young lads, if you like, getting involved.
Tyler Morton, who's played Championship football, knows all about it.
He would have been able to handle himself in that environment comfortably, absolutely comfortably. I do think it was, Isaac Mabia's had about 2 years out through injury, so probably did come a bit too soon for him in his return. He only came back in sort of football about a month or two ago tops, so he hasn't got loads of that under his belt yet. Trey Leone's a wonderfully gifted footballer. I just think, when a team is so disjointed and so dysfunctional like Liverpool were yesterday, when the senior lads weren't, as we've already made mention to, weren't delivering and weren't producing anything like their usual quality, then it's really, really difficult for young lads to shine and actually get a foothold in the game. If you're turning to Trey Leone, James McConnell even I thought had a decent afternoon actually, if you're turning them and be like, you need to get us out of this, you need to be the one to step up, that's a huge ask. Like, they need to be dropped into sides that are working and are playing well. That just wasn't the case.
To round up Abs a little bit, like the big shame, obviously Liverpool losing is a big shame, we all know that, but the injury to Joe Gomez is a real sickener really. He looked absolutely devastated. Arne Slott's comments after the game was, we don't think it's a tear, we're not sure it's a reoccurrence of what it was, so hopefully it's just something that they caught early. I think Joe Gomez, there was reference like he felt one more sprint would have done him in, kind of thing, so he thought I best get off the pitch. He tried to play through it. Liverpool give him a pretty long recovery period after the injury against West Ham. That was just post-Christmas, wasn't it? And so he waits, almost 6-7 weeks, I think, to get back in the team. He's been training for 2 weeks. It's just, again, with what's coming up, I don't think Joe would have been the first choice in any games, but he's certainly a viable option in a couple of areas. He's back up in a couple of areas. It was a big shame to see him go down so early.
Yeah, I feel so much for him, because he's one of those players that I was really excited to see come back just because of his versatility. Like I've said so many times, people might disagree with me, but he can play right back, left back, centre half, and he even played as a 6 under Jurgen. I mean, I think one of those performances he was all right, the other one he wasn't so great. So, but he's got that versatility about him that you want in the team when you go, well, not all fronts anymore, but when you're still fighting for 3 trophies at the minute, you want him to be around, and you can see how much it means to him. He looked devastated when he had to come off, and you're just praying that it's not serious. But even if it's not serious, they're going to be careful with him now, aren't they? So we probably won't see him for at least a few weeks, and it's just a massive shame for him because he's been such an important part for the club for a long time. He's the longest standing player at Liverpool now, I think, and it's just devastating because he's got so much talent there. But I don't know how long we can bear with that now. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how long we actually decide, we're going to keep him around. When he's that injury prone, it's a massive shame because when he's on form, he's absolutely brilliant for Liverpool. I
suppose, this is unfortunately, this is the Joe Gomez experience. He plays well, he gets injured. Like that's just been what we've had for a long time. Now, listen, I always think sometimes you've got to categorise stuff like, he did his ACL, like shit happens. Like that's unlucky. You can't do much about that. But there are a lot of muscle strains and muscle injuries in Joe Gomez's patch, and that tends not to get better as you get older. He nearly left Liverpool last summer. He didn't, and he spoke afterwards about how much it means to play here. 10 years, which is fantastic. He was captain of the team yesterday, but this kind of is what you get with Joe Gomez. Like, you've got to accept that he will miss football games because he gets muscle injuries.
Yeah, and it's sad because, like we've said there, when he's on it, he is an absolute excellent footballer. I mean, you know, he was a part of the Champions League and the Premier League run, and he was alongside Virgil van Dijk, and they were absolute Rolls Royces together. Last season for Liverpool, he was everywhere. He was...
My drink there, can you hear that in the background?
Yeah, might as well just like, there we go.
Dr. Pepper there.
Thought we were taking off for a second.
I know what, I tried to hide it under the desk, and then I realised that sounds a bit like a fart. So I'm going to lift it up so everyone just does a big scoop one out.
I also was trying very hard not to look at what you were doing.
Sorry.
It's all right. Thanks for clarifying though, because it was me who was speaking. So
on the audio, someone listening to the podcast be going, was someone fan? As Chloe was speaking, I had to get it edited. It was a Dr. Pepper, sorry. Sorry, Chloe,
anyway,
interrupting your thought there.
Nobody's... yeah, anyway, a boss footballer, and last season he was probably the unsung hero, and I think he got a lot of plaudits because then people realised just how good he is, and I think he's been the most available for us. But once again, he comes back this season and he does brilliantly when called upon, because you've got another centre-half who's just as injury-prone in Ibu Konate there, and Kwanzaa, who's struggled so far this season. What are you smiling at?
Just wish you didn't say that. You're right, but I just wish you didn't say it.
Why do you think I'm jinxing it?
A little bit, yeah,
Okay.
a little bit. Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm superstitious. We've been through this. Cricket, you know, I'm a very superstitious person. Sorry.
Can I back a little bit with, I thought Kwanzaa was really good yesterday.
Yeah, he was good, yeah.
He was okay.
He was all right.
Okay, maybe I thought he
Not
was
sold.
fully disagreed.
It's not that, it's just like, who was good aside from
I think him and
Wenger?
Endo with I thought McConnell had a decent afternoon, actually, to be honest with you.
I thought Kwanzaa stood up to the fact that, you know, considering at the beginning of the season, obviously he got benched against Ipswich for not winning duels, and again, listen, Liam Delap's far better than any Plymouth player. I don't think you can accuse him that yesterday. He didn't shy away from the long ball and the balls into the box. He was game for it, at least, because I've seen Liverpool lose at lower league teams, and it's usually some big grok striker throws his elbows about and second balls. And actually, that wasn't the case. Liverpool defended all right. It was just a little bit of a brain far from Harvey Elliott, really. But this is the thing now, I go back to it. 5 and 15 coming up. Trent at this moment in time, we don't know where he's at. And now you lose Joe Gomez. Like, there's a chance Gerald Kwanzaa, he might have to play some of these Premier League games. You just don't know. Can the manager say to Ibu, 5 and 15, that's a lot of football. We might have to rely now. It would have been Gomez. Now it might have to be Gerald Kwanzaa.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst performance he's had for Liverpool, but it definitely wasn't the best. I think when you're watching that game, you're just judging them as a whole, aren't you? But maybe you could say maybe centre-half was a position where we did okay, but I wouldn't say any of it was amazing. I can't see him getting much game time, to be honest. I think, touch wood, not to jinx and upset you, Dan, I think something serious would have to happen for us to see Kwanzaa having any... Kwanzaa having any serious game time, especially now we're out of the FA Cup. But it wasn't the worst performance we've seen from him this season, but I'm still not fully convinced, to be honest.
What I would say, if we want to spin positive finally,
Yeah,
before
go
we go,
on, you find something positive.
No, there was nothing positive in the game. The game was shite. The positives now, Chloe, looking forward, if you want to take silver linings, I suppose. The rest is important.
I appreciate it.
Which might be a factor. I'm trying to think anything else. I think perhaps just a rocker up the arse of some players. Yeah. Like if Arne Slot now, if someone knocks on his dressing room door when they're not playing and goes, or his manager officer goes, why aren't I playing? He go, see yourself in Plymouth. Some lads there are going to have to up their levels in training to get themselves back in the team, because there are still a couple of places in Liverpool's 11 which you can semi-debate. Costas at left back's definitely one of them. Somebody up front or on the left wing is another. There might be something in midfield there for you. If none of those lads can complain now if they're not in the team for a while, because nobody stepped up. So from a positive point of view, Arne Slot can use that as motivation and say, listen, you need to be here.
Yeah.
Get your ass into gear in training. Yeah,
and we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago with that Ipswich game. The fact that it wasn't a 4-0 perfect thing, the fact that they scored a goal, we conceded, it actually helps Arne Slot, because he literally has something to pinpoint and say, right, for the majority, 85 minutes of that game of football, I loved, but this situation needs improving, and he can continue to demand a certain level. This is great, because Harvey Elliott, for example, has came off the back of a really big week in his Liverpool career in terms of all the speculation, everything about him leaving, and then he goes and scores in the Champions League, obviously has a helping hand in that Brentford game as well. Like, he showed up that entire, week and a half or whatever it was. And, it's great. That's what you need. But also, then you come to Plymouth and he has a game like that. And look, he's a kid, but he somehow is one of the senior lads due to his appearances and how much he's played for Liverpool. And once again, Arne Slot can just go back to him and go, right, so here's what you did wrong. This is why you're not getting in the team as much. So this is what the level needs to be consistently. Kostas has not helped himself in any way, because for a lot of the season I've sat there and thought it's a toss-up between Kostas and Robbo. Like, I don't really know which one you start. One week I'm thinking Robbo, the next week I'm thinking Kostas. Whoever usually comes on with 20 to go and has loads of energy, I'm like, they should start next game. And then they start next game and it's like, actually, no, go back to the other lads. Kostas, Robbo will be absolutely made up in a way, because, he come off a brilliant performance against Bournemouth. Kostas has done that. He thought he was sound against Spurs as well the other day. Kostas has done that, and it's like, it's just absolutely mad. I don't know why a lad can't whip a ball in. He's so good at it, usually, and especially from corners. But it felt like every time he had the ball in that left back position, he just needed to take about 4 touches more than he needed and try and take on every lad instead of whipping a ball in the box. But it's good for standards. It's good that there's things to improve on. And it's not good that we're not in the competition. But at the same time, I can't wait for the weekend where I don't have to emotionally invest in a game.
You go at the beginning of March before you have to. You've got a rough couple of weeks coming.
I have, I know, but still.
Ride it out a little bit. Like,
yeah, but there's big enough games in there.
Yeah, the ones you can get up for. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I look, I don't even know who's in the next round. That is how much notice I've taken after Liverpool got knocked out. But like, if we'd have got another southern team and I had to go to Brighton or something,
it'd be Chelsea. Cardiff away was on the card.
Oh no, I'm quite glad about that, I won't lie to you.
Yeah,
slightly glad.
Can I just say on the rest thing, yes, obviously, because yes, we now don't play that weekend, and potentially, definitely not in quarterfinals, etc. I come back to my earlier point in terms of like, what are we resting? Because the lads didn't play anyway. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're resting the fringe players at this point, who were getting quite a lot of rest, as it so happens. And it's come back to your point earlier on about at what point do the big hitters start playing? If it's semi-finals, final, there was 2 more games there potentially for the fringe lads in terms of sharpening their own tools. That's where I'm coming from.
No, see, I also just think, but like, they all have to train and they all have to prepare for that game, and the coaching staff all have to prepare for, like, literally, if you aren't stopped now, and you can send them all on holiday. You know what I mean? On the day they play Newcastle, they can go and have a week off, because then they haven't got a game till the following weekend against Southampton. You can give them a week off, and I think that.
And Liverpool are famously really good after the long.
No, absolutely.
No, but honestly,
I see your point, but I'm just thinking from a refreshment. I get it. Liverpool ran out of legs last year. There's no doubt about it. They were done in.
I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit.
It goes back to my point of, I don't like losing cups. I want to win cups. If you're going to not win a cup, go out early. The worst thing is like quarter-final, semi-final defeats. They wreck your season because you don't get the trophy, and also you play deep into March, April.
Also, the other thing on it is that, like, it's just another thread for absolutely everyone to pull at. The quad. That is
I get
massive.
It becomes a big thing.
And it becomes a massive thing. And then everything's just heightened.
They do that to us every time, though. The media just like, quad, Liverpool, I know our
It might have been less so. It's been bigger under Klopp, it feels like. It might have been slightly dampened down. Certainly last season, because the Klopp was leaving all that, it became a huge beast of all of itself. So I take your point. I'm just ultra-competitive sports. I want to win games constantly, no matter what.
I think if you're going to win the treble, like what Man City and Man United and fair play, like it's difficult. I think you'll have to probably got the League Cup. You know what I mean? I don't think getting to a League Cup final at that point, you have to start prioritising one or the other. The way the calendar works, I think. Listen, the treble is fantastic. I hope Liverpool win a treble. Like the treble at some point in my life, it'll be unbelievable. And fair play those 2 teams who done it. But I just don't see it's possible to do well, Abi, in the League Cup, get to the league, win the League Cup, and do that. It just feels like at this point you've got to pick one or the other. And actually, because the League Cup starts earlier, and you probably have got players who are fitter and need games and need a bit of rhythm, like Arne Slot picked a stronger team in the League Cup quarter-final than they did in the FA Cup 4th round, for example. So it feels like at some point you have to choose one or the other. Jurgen Klopp almost did it, and he almost got both, but then he ends up sacrificing the league almost because of that. Yeah. It's a very, very difficult balance with so many games. Unless you've got a squad of 40 amazing players, it feels almost, this quadruple thing feels impossible.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not like any of us really thought we had the squad to go and do the quadruple. I think the fans of every other club decide that, oh yeah, Liverpool are going to do this, and I don't think any Liverpool fan actually thought that we were going to go on and win a quadruple. It was never in any of our minds.
I'll be honest.
You thought about it?
Did you really think about it?
Did
you?
22.
Oh, then.
Yeah,
yeah.
not this season.
No,
I mean in terms of this season. No, I definitely thought we were winning all of them that year, and then we just walked away with the 2 cups. No, I was 100% convinced, but I still think
the 2 trophies.
I still think if
there's a lad next door who've they've got 30 years. We're complaining about 2.
Yeah, but even going back to then, I still think if we win the league, then we'd have gone on to win that Champions League game. But anyway, it's by the way. Anyway,
it's not emotionally.
Let's not go all the way back there and start bringing that up. I'm just really happy that we've at least got a trip to Wembley to look forward to. It's a bit of a shame that we can't carry on to fight another day to try and get another one, but I think we'll all be able to still have a bit of fun, and we should be doing Newcastle in
I'm looking forward to
final.
weekends with my kids in March. I feel like I've abandoned them for the last and it's going to get worse over the next few weeks.
I don't think Slot's going to pose it to the players as, oh, this is a great thing. By the way, I can imagine he's going to definitely use this against those bench players 1,000,000% and say this is why you're not getting game time. But one thing I will say is when I did the LFC TV last night, we were meant to, as the fan panel, were meant to come on again, but because they didn't know if they were going to get any of the players were going to come out and speak to the media. They weren't really expecting it, after a defeat like that. And Harvey went straight over to the media team, and that's why we never came on again. And he was so mature, so honest, and you expect that, and he fully fronted it. I mean, he did take credit for the penalty. Like, he did say it was my fault, but at the same time he sort of tried to argue it a little bit to say what was I meant to do there, but your arms were both above your head.
Can I say, I think Harvey tried to gaslight us a little bit.
Yeah.
He was like, it might have been a penalty. However, ref, my hands were up in a natural position as I was jumping. It was
natural for a different sport.
Yeah. It was natural, like he was trying to spike a volleyball. I feel a little bit like Harvey was gaslighting us there, Dan. It wasn't always convincing of defences. It was like, I take full responsibility. However,
fair play to him for at least trying to come out and speak to the media.
Well, I made an argument. I technically did break the plate. However, if you hadn't bought that plate 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been there to break in the first place.
Yeah, it's a penalty, isn't it? Let's have it right. Like, it's one of the more obvious. Because you texting and saying, "Is that on ball?"
Is that
I can't see from down.
Honestly, God, it's the most nailed on. But Abby's right in terms of Harvey, like I say, coming out and actually accepting, taking ownership of the situation, if you like, because rightfully so. Because him and like 2, 3, 4 others were the senior lads in that team, and I looked at the starting lineup and I was pleasantly surprised by how strong he'd gone. Actually, I thought, okay, there's more than enough quality there. But you looked at like Harvey to take responsibility and to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and it was the opposite of all that, wasn't it? He was one of the worst on the pitch, and I hate saying it, but
it felt like he was more of in the likes of McConnell or Naoni's position. It felt as though he was sort of playing as if this wasn't like one of the first times he was playing for Liverpool, as if he was like just warming into it a bit. Not 120 appearances for Liverpool. I know he's young, but you've got to be one of those senior players on the pitch there, because you've got the experience. But as I say, fair play to him for coming out and being the professional afterwards and taking a bit of credit there.
Also, it's one of them where, for me, I'll go back to it. At some point, Liverpool will have had to have had a blip again, because I don't think it'd be perfect for the rest of the season. Do it in a game against Plymouth Argyle in the first couple of rounds of the FA Cup. That's when you do it, because that's
we've been really good at Chloe this year. So we've been really good at picking the best hand to lose this year. Like we've been excellent losers. Like that's first leg in the Spurs game, a dead rubber in against PSV. This one, not probably the worst of the lot, because there's no comeback. Yeah. You're out now. But you are right. Liverpool have picked their spots very well. If you're going to lose games, there's worse ones to go on.
There is, and also it just means that everyone cannot get complacent. It is a little bit of a thing where, how many times have the questions are already being asked, but they will become even worse on, do you think you're going to win the league? Do you think you're going to win the league? Do you think you can do it? And every time, all of our players are going to sit there and go, we just take it one game at a time. But you can try and have that outlook, but deep down, you're still a player who wants to win this, and you start to get excited and you start to believe, and you got to make sure that you don't get ahead of yourself. Things like this that put you in the place, that show that you've got to have that level. You can't be complacent at any level. Hopefully it can help us, and also it's just, for me, it's not that big of a deal. Arsenal were out of this competition anyway, and they're the closest to us in the title race. So now we're on level playing field with them. They'd have used, if we'd have got through, they'd have sat there and gone, beautiful. Whilst we have another weekend off, they've got to go again, and they might have to go to the arse end of the UK again.
They're chilling in Dubai as I speak, Sandy. We've got a couple of super chats and messages before we start wrapping up this part. First of all, James says, I think it might be a blessing. Winning trophies is key, but I'd just focus on the bigger prizes like the league. Now, we move on to the next game. Yeah, fair enough. Prota Jidu, it says that game, though, could maybe be Kelleher's final Liverpool game, which is a shame. I mean, it might be.
Do you know what? I didn't even think of that.
He might get the League Cup final. I mean, listen, don't bank on Alisson staying fit, by the way. Like, touch wood again.
Yeah.
Like, we've been down this road before, but I wonder if the manager does give him the League Cup final. We'll find out in due course. But actually, he is right. Kelleher's final after the Liverpool player might be having a header on target, which is quite something.
Can you imagine that's the last time he touches the ball for Liverpool, is that header? I really thought that was going to go in, by the way. I thought, right, this is his moment, like Alisson's, where that goes in. But I think that'd be a massive shame. We've literally probably got the best number 2 in the league, and I'm not giving him the Carabao Cup final though. I'm giving that to Alisson. I'm sorry. Listen, I love Kelleher, and it'll be such a shame if he doesn't play another game for Liverpool, but I'm not giving him that. I want Slot to have his first silverware, and I'm not saying he wouldn't put in maybe even the best performance of his life, but Alisson is just the best keeper in the world, and if you've got him available to you for a final, you play him. And Newcastle have got like Isak and Gordon and that running at you. Yeah, I want to feel safe with Alisson in the net. That's what I want.
What I can say is that purple goalkeeper kit is absolutely unreal.
That was a positive from the day.
Yeah.
It
was.
I didn't like. I'll be honest. I didn't like the beard, moustache, goatee thing.
It's too far away from me.
Well, you couldn't see it.
It's no idea.
Wasn't
not a strong beard.
What I will say
it's a little bit like Milky Bar Kid trying to grow up a little bit beard.
Right.
Like if Chris tried to grow a beard, that's what it was kind of like.
Okay. The sun for the first 25 minutes was absolutely stunning. And then the sun went behind the stadium and it was absolutely freezing again. But for those 25 minutes...
Basking in the glow
I'm
on the
loving all these positives.
Yeah, listen,
it's a new Chloe. Bit of vitamin D.
It's a new Chloe. It's a new everybody. Yeah, we're going to move on after the break. Then we're going to look ahead to what is a massive 15 days in not only the history of Liverpool Football Club, but the immediate future as well, with the Reds chasing hopefully another Premier League title. We'll be back with part 2 after this quick break. See you in a minute. Hey everyone, in December we give away a shirt signed by Kenny Dalglish. In January we give a shirt signed by Ian Callaghan away. Well, it's February and we've got another signed shirt to give to one of our wonderful Redmen Plus Legend subscribers. This time it is signed by not one but 2 icons of the football club. This is a Rome 1984 shirt signed by 2 of the men who won the European Cup for Liverpool on that day. You've got Ronnie Whelan and you've got Spaghetti Legs himself, Bruce Grobbelaar. If you want to be in the draw to win this, simply go to redmenplus.com. Join us as a Legend subscriber. Get access to all of our amazing extra content in video and in podcast forms. And yeah, you get loads of perks. You get access to the Discord, you get free merchandise, you get discounted merchandise as well. But if you do it today, by the end of February, you'll be in the draw to win this signed shirt. Ronnie Whelan, Bruce Grobbelaar, get yourselves involved right now. Welcome back. By the way, what a prize that is. Our next Legend prize, one of our Redmen Plus subscribers, Legend subscribers, will be getting that shirt signed by 2 Liverpool European Cup winners. We're giving too many good prizes, right? I mean, mainly thanks to Dan going and chasing down legends all across the world. Was that one signed by you? I think it probably was, wasn't it?
Probably was, yeah, to be honest. Not signed by me, nobody wants that.
Not signed by me. I mean, if you want a shirt signed by Dan, email
I can sort that for you.
Dan@redmentv.com.
DMs are open.
Honestly, make sure you take a good photo or something though, so we can put it as a header on Twitter.
Yeah. And it might devalue it if I write on it, to be honest, but still, I'm here.
I remember when we were in Philadelphia and some guy asked me and Paul to sign his shirt, and Paul did say, you are making your shirt with less money than the second. Then if me and Steve write on your shirt, you probably ruined your shirt. But he was adamant, so thank you to that guy. But yeah, that was if you want Dan's autograph, you feel free. But if you want Bruce Grobbelaar, Ronnie Whelan, I think that shirt was then Redmen Plus is the place to go. Right, guys, the context of the last loss. This is it. this is why the manager did what he did. I'll start with you. 5 games in 15 days starting on Wednesday. 3 tough aways, which are Everton, Villa and Man City. There's a home game against Wolves, and then there's Newcastle at home on the 26th of Feb, which again isn't going to be easy. A prelude to the League Cup final, but also a very difficult game against a good side. Liverpool got 15 games left in the Premier League this season. They're playing 5 of them in the next 15 days. It feels like, as make or break periods go of seasons, this feels absolutely huge. Are you looking forward to it? Are you nervous? Where are we at?
Very, very nervous, to be honest. I feel a bit sick about it, especially the derby. I feel like all of a sudden my whole timeline's just full of Everton fans being so happy that we got beat by Plymouth, and they think that automatically means that they're well up for it, like they weren't beaten by Bournemouth. The thing for me is, before the Bournemouth game, I was thinking to myself, I'll take 4 points between these 2 games, Everton and Bournemouth. I was hand down to take that, and now we're going into that game. I want to win it just because of the way they've all reacted on social media, the way they think that our literal bench starting against the bottom of the Championship means that they're shooing to win against us, and it's just... I need to see Liverpool win another football game and show the entire country who was spinning this as some sort of narrative that our first team were beat by Plymouth, which they weren't. That we mean business.
Can I say the reason that this is such a massive game to me and is a bigger game to me is because this has been waiting to happen for about 2 months. We've sat here and Arsenal have sat there and said 6 points behind, 6 points behind. Liverpool have a game in hand. You would much rather the points on the board, and we haven't been able to put those points on the board because we've not been able to play this game.
Would you rather have played when they had Dyche as manager or play it now?
Oh, I'd rather played when they had Dyche as manager.
Really? So if you could go back and let's say the wind didn't affect it, would you rather have played it then and not
No, because we had an entire 11 out or something ridiculous.
I like having that game in hand, you know what I mean? The fact that we've had that to use
but now
against them.
The problem is that if you go... This game is massive because if you go 9 points clear, the Arsenal fans who for the past 2 months have been going, it's only 6 points, it's only 6 points, it's only 6 points, they instantly go, shit, it's 9 points, and that's the derby at Goodison out the way.
I think they even think the same at 7. I'm not saying I would like us to
game,
draw.
isn't it, ultimately?
Yeah, if Liverpool don't lose the game, it's a 3-game swing that Arsenal have got to try and get back together. You are right. It's interesting because we were all happy, Chloe, like you said. I think, listen, we want to see Liverpool play games. Given the situation Liverpool were in at that time, there was a couple of injuries. I think Alexis would have been suspended for the game. It wouldn't have been ideal. And then I know Dyche is shit, but Dyche ball worked against Liverpool last year. We're not going to get Dyche ball on Wednesday. You're going to get David Moyes' version, which is actually a little bit more front foot and a bit more positive. You can swing that both ways depending on how you see it. But you are right in that this game in hand, now you have to play the game in hand. The game in hand's fantastic as long as you get something out of it. If you lose the game in hand, it was a red herring the whole time. Yeah,
exactly. And also, once again, it's a game that can swing momentum. You drop points here, you lose to Everton, and the Arsenal fans then start believing again. They've tried to keep this positive narrative that they've still got a chance, because, you know, it's the whole, they've got 6 points, then they have to face City, if they can do something against them, there's 3, then we have to go to Anfield, we can have something. So then it swings back in our favour. You put 9 points in between you and you've played the Goodison derby, the last Goodison derby at that. Then I just think the talk becomes, how many people or pundits are sat there going, it's not over just yet. You put a 9-point gap in, and literally this time next week, everyone's going, might be over.
If it's 9 points, if it gets to 9 points, and we hope it does, it gets to 9 points, Arsenal then have got off 14 games, I think, right in saying, to swing back 9 points. They're going to have to, you are saying to them, you have to be perfect, and then you hope that Liverpool have a real wobble, because listen, Villa away, Man City away, Fulham away, all to come for Liverpool. They're not easy games. They have to go to Chelsea, they have to go to Brighton, they play Arsenal. There are teams who can take points off Liverpool, but I think if it gets to 9, you're basically saying to Arsenal, you need to go on like the type of run that Manchester City usually go on, where you, and listen, to be fair, Arsenal last year post Dubai went on a really big win and run, and it wasn't enough, and that wasn't a 9-point gap. You're going to ask them to be very, very, almost perfect.
Yeah, you're asking an Arsenal side that hasn't really looked like doing that either to do it, are you? Don't get me wrong. Like, they went blow for blow with City last year, as you mentioned, but I'm not sure they've quite got the wherewithal to do it this time around. Just lost Gabriel Martinelli as well to injury. So what they have at their disposal is just lacking ever so slightly, I feel. And also, the pressure in which they've got on them to do it is mounted even more so than they had last season, because they're now sort of 2 seasons removed from being there or thereabouts, and this is the third one. This was supposed to be their time. Man City fell off a cliff a little bit. Arsenal were heir apparent to the throne, and yet, look, here we are. I can't decide whether we are sort of nailing coffin or digging the grave territory if we do win this game of football. Like, it feels like we're getting towards that sort of realm. So I think if we do beat Everton, not only Chloe's absolutely spot on in sort of like the momentum swing, and that's a big sort of contributing factor and quite instrumental in terms of title races as well, because I think for us, you know, this derby at Goodison's been hanging over our heads, been looming large for so long now, because obviously it's been postponed and pushed back to where we are. I think if we do go there and put on a bit of a show and do the job and get the 3 points, we can bounce into what is a very treacherous run, and maybe even, you know, go unbeaten, win a couple more along the way as well. Whilst Arsenal will look at this, fan base, players included, because they've already struggled to cope a little bit with the pressure along the way, because obviously we get the job done at Brentford, they drop points immediately after against Villa. They've already shown cracks and signs of that being all too much for them to handle. Win this week and put all the pressure on Arsenal. As you said there, Steve, say to them, we're not going anywhere. You're going to have to be perfect to win this. And that's a big ask.
Their injury situation is not going to get better till March. I think they're expecting Saka and Martinelli out for a month now. They get Ben White back soon, but they are struggling.
And they weren't even bolstered by anything new and shiny in January.
No.
They did try, but it feels like that would have given them a real boost. And that didn't even
I think
arrive.
their fan base are teetering, and we'll definitely speak more about Arsenal on the Bias Football podcast later for sure. We've got loads to speak about the Gunners. But back to Liverpool a bit, Abs. I said there, it's Everton away, Wolves at home, Villa away, City away, Newcastle at home. That's the next 5 and 15. It's interesting because again, a couple of injuries now, but Arne Slot's done so well in keeping his players mainly fit and fresh. You mentioned before, like the Plymouth game, and like, you know, not many of those players might feature. It would be really hard to play the same 11, 12 lads in those 5. He is going to have to use some of his bench at some places, whether it be from the start or bringing them on. This is now, you're probably going to need to use 18, 19, 20 of your players here, because asking the same 11 or 12 to go, they're tough games. This is where Arne Slot's squad management and team selections are going to be vital here, because you make 1 or 2 mistakes and all of a sudden it's like, shit, there's another game that we've lost or whatever. He's got loads of options to him. But yeah, we are probably going to see a lot of these players now. And after they underperformed yesterday, they always won. It'll be interesting to see when he decides to do that. Potentially Wolves at home, for example. But I wonder how far ahead do you think he's looking? Do you think he's just going Everton and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it? Or is he picking games? That's a Robertson game, that's a Timbercast game, that's a Gakpo game, but that's a Diaz game. How far do you reckon Arne Slot might be looking?
I know they always say they take it one game at a time, but there's absolutely no way he's not got all those fixtures laid out and knows exactly who he wants to play in those games. I mean, I know some of the players played really bad the other day against Plymouth, but at the end of the day, like I said before, if you throw 1 or 2 of them into the first team with the likes of Van Dijk and Alisson, you know, sort of giving them proper feedback behind them, you know, being able to sort of carry the team with some real professionalism and proper captaincy from Virgil behind them, you know, they'll sort of be able to perform better. I think it's just a blip throwing them all together like that. The cohesion wasn't there, and if they play in any of those games, like let's say you throw 2 or 3 of them in against Wolves, let's say, you know, you put the likes of Jota in, maybe even Elliott gets a game there, they're not going to perform terribly there. You know, I think that's probably a game for Simicast as well. Robertson definitely gets the derby. You're not going to see a performance like you saw. I think it was just genuinely the fact that it felt a bit clobbered together. You're definitely going to need them. You've got no choice but to use them. I still believe that the squad depth's there. I just don't believe that you play all the depth together and you don't, you know what I mean, at the same time.
I suppose, Dan, if before the season, if I said to you, list down what might be Liverpool's toughest away games, City probably would have been 1 at the time. That might have changed now because they're having a bit of a wobble, and we saw what Arsenal did to them relatively recently. You'd have had the away derby might have been in there somewhere. Villa away could have been somewhere up and around it, you know, in those as well. That's a tough game. Like Liverpool do now have a run of away games where, now granted their away form has been good, but they are not easy games on paper. Flipping it the other way to say for example an Arsenal point of view, or maybe even an optimistic Nottingham Forest fan, they will be saying, I could easily see Liverpool dropping points at Everton, Aston Villa and Manchester City. It's up to these lads now and this manager to prove them wrong. do you think they've got that in them to prove them wrong?
Yeah, most definitely, yeah, and they've proven that most of the season, I think it's fair to say. Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, circumstances dictate how the Everton games fell. Obviously, it wasn't supposed to be there. Likewise, Aston Villa. So that's a bit of a fixture, unnecessary fixture pile up, I think it's fair to say. It's more treacherous than maybe it should be in normal circumstances. But yeah, this squad, this group have definitely got the credentials and the quality with which to overcome all of them fixtures. Certainly in isolation, I think the bunched upness of them makes it slightly more complicated, because as you guys have just said there, we will probably need to delve into the squad and sort of the 13th, 14th man more than on a slot would in ideal circumstances. But yeah, it's testing, most definitely. But I think we've had the perfect preparation for all this. You know, obviously we did at PSV a couple of weeks ago, and then certainly what we did over the weekend against Plymouth. That's all been with this in mind. The proof will now be in the pudding. Like if all of a sudden we go on a bit of a sticky patch in this and the results aren't quite what we expected, then that Plymouth game will look even worse. And obviously the league position will look even worse. It will give Arsenal hope. So I go into this full of confidence. And often, this is a very different iteration of Liverpool now under Arne Slot and Klopp, but I often look at games like this, and you're nervous, Abi, and I get that, understandably so, because look at it. But I go into this more confident than ever, because I think we thrive in these sort of circumstances. I think professional footballers, you'd rather be playing these sort of games in these sort of atmospheres and these sort of scenarios than you will training day in, day out, or going out to Plymouth and playing, for example. This is what you do it for. You're Aston Villa away, you're Everton away, City, etc. So this is make or break time now for me. We come out of this unscathed, this next 5, and unscathed doesn't look like all wins, by the way. It looks like something slightly different, but still, then it's
still at least 6 points.
The end's in sight. Yeah, the end's in sight for me.
Like I say, and it's worth mentioning, like these are games where you can drop points. We hope we don't. If Liverpool win 50, get 50 out of 5, they'll win the league. I'm convinced.
Yeah, it's done.
If they win all 5, there's just no coming back. I don't think for that. But there might be a loss, there might be a draw, there might be something in here. I think it's important that like Liverpool have given themselves a buffer, and that the world doesn't end. You know what I mean? Because like Liverpool's record at Everton isn't great. Liverpool's record at Manchester City isn't great. That they're just facts. Villa's probably been a little bit more fruitful until last year wasn't ideal, but by then it was almost a bit of a dead rubber of a game almost as well. But Liverpool have given themselves a buffer for these tough games. It'll be. I hope we don't have to see it, Chloe. But if we do end up like drawing one or even if there's a defeat in there, I think it would be very, very important that heads don't fall off and that people maintain some level. And I mean the players and supporters really.
Good luck with that.
I know that's hard, but I do believe I think it's a testing period. Title races aren't easy. You're going to have ups and downs. I hope we win all 5. I think 12 points out of those 5 is all right. 13 means a draw, so you take that as well. But it'll be interesting, and I hope we don't see it. Like I say, if Liverpool do drop points somewhere in games that they have done in the past, the reaction needs to be stronger than perhaps it was when a B/C team got beat at Plymouth.
Yeah, I'm not looking at Liverpool dropping points because that makes me feel ill.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest.
I gotcha.
What I will say is that, like you mentioned there, Dan, this is when atmospheres come to your rescue, because we as a fan base, we inside that ground, know how important these games now are. If you get over that Everton game, I am convinced that the ground is then rocking. Anfield knows that you've put a 9-point gap between you and Arsenal. Arsenal have to go perfect. And not just, what Arsenal have not been good at doing so far this season is capitalising when Liverpool have dropped points. And actually, what they have done is when Liverpool have put a bit of a sucker punch in there with the Brentford last-minute goals, they've gone and dropped points elsewhere. So I just think right now, it's really, really nerve-wracking, but also it's exciting. These are the games that mean everything and that you get so invested in, and you know that the team needs your backing, and therefore this kind of run, this is what it's all about, being a football fan. This is the roller coaster that you have to go on. And sometimes you end up with the lowest lows, but the highest highs are absolutely incredible. So I think it's one of them where you should be excited. You should be prepared to, get behind the lads and give them every bit of adrenaline, every bit of energy that you can possibly put into it. Make sure you as a fan base suffocate the opposition. We're going to go to Goodison Park and we know what to expect. We know the atmosphere, the way they can play football. We know how tough it's going to be. You come out of that with 3 points. I don't think any fan base understands how big that would be for us, especially especially it being the last derby at Goodison. So it's incredibly tough. But if you want to win the league, you've got to be consistent over a long period. You've got to beat the best of the best. You've got to beat the likes of Aston Villa, who are a brilliant football team right now, who's got a boss manager. And you've got to go and prove that you are the best, so go and do that.
Just quickly, sorry, on that, it does prove title credentials, absolutely Chloe spot on in that assessment, but we've spent a lot of time on this show in particular this season talking about what a title race looks like and what this feels like to us. And it's felt slightly different, I think it's fair to say. I don't think I'm speaking, on my own there. I think a lot of people have the same opinion. It looks like this. Yeah. It looks like the next 15 days. And if we're sat here in 16 days talking about Liverpool coming through this, with still a 6 or even 9 point advantage, then we're having a completely different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. To go quickly, we'll do a proper preview show of the derby, so that'll be on your podcast feed on YouTube Tuesday. But you can't ignore, Abs, the emotional game that this is for Everton in particular. It is the last Merseyside derby. It was meant to be a Saturday 12:30. The one negative, I suppose, that it got moved is now it's under the lights at Goodison and all that stuff. They're doing the coach welcoming. They've got the banners. They've got the flags. It's going to be you'd like to think a raucous night down at Goodison Park. That's the one negative. Liverpool. That's another thing that you're going to have to go and cope with. I always feel the derby, Everton is shit. So more often than not, Man City go there and win, and Arsenal probably go there and win, and it's relatively easy. It's a bit like us going to a nondescript 15th to 18th place team in the Premier League and you probably just win. It's always different for Liverpool. It's always more heated. That's probably going to be tenfold now, given the fact that, like I say, the last derby at that ground.
No matter what, they want to be able to say again, which wasn't true last time, by the way. You lost to the league at Goodison Park. They want to be able to say that. They'll have a bloody dog that they're carrying outside the bus parade and all that. They'll have all sorts going on, dog sacrifices, booing and everything.
Did he go that far?
That poor dog.
I'm only
Surely someone's got to look into that.
So the RSPCA onto the phone.
That photo of the dog getting carried over the mall is maybe not sacrifice. Maybe that was too far.
I think it was the opposite. I think it was glorifying.
Do you think that's what it was? Do you think the dog was like their leader on the day? Okay. Well, all that's going to be going on again, isn't it? Let's be honest. They'll be well up for this. We're not just like the likes of City or Arsenal that they'll usually roll over for. This is the derby. They want to be able to say we lost it at Goodison Park. It's the very last one that they've got to be able to say that and be able to, they do all love that ground. That's the thing. They all love it, and they want lasting memories.
Shit, and so are they.
They want lasting memories. And this season, I mean, they're not going to go down. But what have they got to show for it? Probably finishing 15th or something like that.
This is their season now.
This is it.
It sounds like I'm being a dick. I'm not. I'm being.
No, because they're not going to go down. They're not going to go down. They can't win anything.
This is it.
A moment like this is massive for them, where they can celebrate it like they've actually won something that they can use against us as well. They love being able to use stuff against us, so they'll be well up for this. But I don't think Moisey has that good of a record against us. If I'm
that's
right.
not.
Right, okay, sorry, I've come on the show.
That's a wooden desk.
Yeah, I do touch wood and touch wood. I do both.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I just say though, I think last year might slightly help us, because for a lot of those players last year, that was their first time doing Goodison, and we got absolutely had off. They weren't ready for it. We weren't prepared.
Calvert-Lewin ragdolled us a little bit.
They literally just bullied us from start to finish. It looked like we didn't want it. Heads were dropping, and for a load of those players, I don't think they maybe realised what a derby was
under the lights at
Goodison. Yeah. So you've got that in the bank. You've been hurt before. You didn't lose the league there because you lost to Crystal Palace, but use that experience, use that hurt, use how pissed off you were at the fact that you played absolutely appalling. Learn from it. That midfield will hopefully go into that game and have more about them. They'll be putting tackles in and challenges in. They won't sit there and let themselves be bullied. You've got to fight for everything. You've got to play dirty, because that's what they'll do. Take time out of the game. They're going to get... They got it last year. They got every foul, every niggle, everything that they got given to them, because the atmosphere it gets onto referees. You have now been thrown in at the deep end, and you did dreadful with handling it last season. Make sure that you do not do that this season.
I think too much as well, Dan, is being made of last season. In general, really, I saw loads of messages. Liverpool fell away last year. Liverpool... I think people are just kind of forgetting the circumstances of how bad the injury list was. You know, like, look at Tottenham we're going through now. Actually, I feel, you know, they're crap and we'll speak about them on bias, but actually, when you have like 10, 11, 12 players out, not only you're missing those players, you run your next players into the ground. Arsenal are kind of having that a little bit. I don't think it's a massive surprise that Martinelli's hamstring goes, because he's been playing all the time, because they've lost Saka and they've lost Gabi Jesus. That Liverpool side that went to Goodison Park were physically spent, and they were mentally gone. Like, and I think we'd have gone a little bit. Me and you did the watch along, and it was terrible. And I think we were quite resigned to the fact that. Did we? Yeah. We were. I think we were quite resigned.
Raised from memory.
I think we were just resigned to the fact that, oh my God, the
race was round.
Yeah, we're spent. We're gone. This Liverpool side is going in fresh and, touch wood, not too many injury problems. You've got doubts over Trent, and then Joe Gomez isn't going to play. Mentally in a much better position. I feel like too much is being made of last season when you're comparing apples to oranges. Yet listen, Liverpool were in with a chance of winning 4 trophies, and they won 1, and it was a shame when they fell away as well. But yeah, I don't know. I think, again, go back to it's apples to oranges. It's an apples to oranges comparison. Other than the time of year, it's a much different situation this time to last year, and I think people need to maybe get their head around that, as well as the derbies. The fact that just the whole situation in general really is completely different.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, you're right. We were very threadbare, weren't we, at the time? I think psychologically, a lot of people don't discuss the impact of that when it comes to football sometimes. But we touched upon it earlier on. We alluded to the fact that not only were the trophies and potential success and glory at stake, it was all heightened by the fact that Jurgen Klopp was leaving the football club, which literally the minute he announced it made everything thereafter 10 times more important. Whether that was right or wrong, it was always going to be the case. Like, he'd have done everything in his power to not let that happen, but it's just impossible, isn't it? You know what I mean? Because the mood and the anxiousness around the fan base was just there. It was existing. It was a living thing. And I think that did all get a little bit too much by the end of it. We felt it, you know, a lot of people made reference yesterday by the fact that United game did derail us a little bit, because every low felt like the lowest possible of lows because of what it all meant. That's not the case this time. This feels like a Liverpool squad in a much healthier place, physically and mentally. So yeah, I think you're right. And obviously there's an intriguing factor around all of this, how Arne Slot approaches it and how he deals with his first derby, because a lot is made of derby records. We spent a long time speaking about Jurgen Klopp's inability is a strong word, but struggles, I think, twice in this game.
We won twice there, and one was 93rd minute.
Yeah.
And then we battered them once.
Battered into 4, wasn't it? Yeah. But his track, given the disparity between the quality of the two sides throughout his entire tenure, we didn't have a great record, as you say. Same could be said for Old Trafford as well, barring 1 or 2 isolated matches. But Arne Slot's dealt with the Old Trafford thing brilliantly thus far. Hopefully the same can happen at Goodison on Wednesday. But yeah, it's a huge, huge game. A lot of it will depend on how we start the match in terms of trying to quiet and calm that crowd, because it will be ferocious for 20 minutes, half an hour. If we can do that and do that well, I think McAllister, we spoke earlier about how he wasn't available for the first one. His involvement in this one's going to be huge. Chloe's right to reference the fact it's going to be tenacious, it's going to be a bit nasty, a bit niggly in that centre of the park. He's front and centre of that queue for me. So yeah, massive game. Massive game.
Abi, if you can win that Goodison, which is, first of all, it's fantastic. It would be a very Everton thing to do, to lose the last derby as well. It's worth mentioning in the recent history of Everton Football Club, but they'll be thinking the opposite. You know, we can derail Liverpool again. That means you get Wolves, and you'd hope that Liverpool can have enough to. You don't count chickens, but you'd hope they can beat Wolves. And then you go into Villa and you go into Manchester City, and it feels like you don't have to win. Again, you'd love to win, but I think if you drop points in the derby, you then have to probably win both Villa and City, and that's going to be tough within itself. I might be wrong. Arsenal might slip up between now and then as well, but it feels like if you get this one done and get the ball rolling in what's going to be a tough period, you can earn your grace a little bit down the line, because you've got 3 points and hopefully 6 points, because you'd hope that Liverpool can beat Wolves at home as well. If you don't, all of a sudden there's big pressure when you go to Villa Park and when you go to the Etihad.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in saying you earn your grace, but at the same time I still think if we win that derby, that carries us through to win the others. I think we walk away from that run of games with all the points if we win the derby. I think it's that big, it's that massive for the team to be able to go there and win the last ever derby. I mean, it's probably a lot bigger thing to the Everton team than it is to the Liverpool team. I'm hoping Slot's probably just fixing it as another game, just prepare the players, which they're already aware of it, but what the atmosphere is going to be like then, how much they're going to be up for this. But I think at the end of the day, if you get that win there, we should definitely be beating Wolves. Wolves are really poor at the minute. They've got a few alright players like Cunha and that, but at the end of the day, they're really struggling. We should be winning there. I think that does give you a bit of grace once you get to Villa and City, but Man City are not the team of old that we're used to them being. I think if we get a win there as well, that'll just be for fun, to be honest. I think I think that'll just be for fun, that we'd enjoy that one. I'm not going to start counting me chickens already, but I think if we can beat Everton, that carries us on for at least past Wolves, maybe Villa, and then you get to City. If you beat City, I think that might carry you through to the end of the season. Who knows? I'm
just looking here, Chloe, I wonder if you can take anything from this. And again, granted, there are 3 big games that Liverpool haven't played yet that you've got to bear in mind. But if you look at Liverpool's away record this season, I've just lost it, but Liverpool are top of the away Premier League record. They haven't lost away from home in the Premier League this season. They've gone to difficult places, like say they went to Old Trafford and won. They went to Bournemouth, which was meant to be a difficult game, and won. They drew down at Arsenal. Like they've shown, actually, Arne Slot has kind of got his head around away games. The home form has been, in terms of poor, it's been worse. In terms of there's been a couple more issues. So Liverpool's away form, they've played 12, won 9, drew 3. Forest are actually second on that list. They've played 12, won 7. Arsenal played 12, won 6. Arne Slot feels like he's figured out away from home so far. Does that give you any confidence going into what are 3 massive away games in the next couple of weeks?
I don't know whether it's that. I think it's more an atmosphere thing. You're at home, you play away from home, and his style of football is going to help you because it's going to take the sting out of the atmosphere, because you're going to pass them to death.
Well, that's part of this. That's part of the conversation.
That is exactly what it is. Yeah. We're at home. Liverpool start doing that, and like the atmosphere kind of dies, because once again we're not used to it. We need to get used to creating an atmosphere when Liverpool aren't this, free-flowing, incredible football team 24/7. Liverpool pick their moments, and I mean, Ipswich was like one of the main examples for it. Is that like going into it, we were poor. But Liverpool sorted it in the second half, and they were the much better side. But it kind of draws you into a false sense of security. It takes the sting out of the atmosphere, and it works in your favour. And then in the second half, when you increase that level of intensity that you haven't had in the first half, and we also problem solve a lot at half time, that can really help you. So I think it's more of just the style of play. We're more calm and measured. It just takes the sting out of atmospheres for opposition, where at home it takes the sting out of your own atmosphere.
I get you.
But hopefully it can help us. Look, I've got no reason to doubt Slot so far, because he's not gave me a reason to doubt him, and he's learned from the things that he has done wrong. So I'm going to back him going into this game. I'm going to back him going into this run of fixtures, and hope that we can come out the other side of it. We've got a group of lads there who have won things before, who might see this as their last opportunity to win things for Liverpool, depending on what happens with them. And also, you can't take it for granted. Liverpool, we saw what happened when we went for that quad. What happened the next season? Liverpool paid the price for being in all 4 competitions. Liverpool could be paying the price next season for what they try to achieve this season.
Go and win it.
So go and win it.
You don't pass it up.
On the away form, that's interesting. We've scored 32 goals away from home in 12 games. We've conceded 12, plus 20 goal difference away. The next best is actually Arsenal with plus 10. Forest is mad. They've got 12. They've got 7 wins, and they've got a goal difference of plus 1. I think didn't they get battered at Bournemouth thing, which probably didn't help them out. Again, I go back to it. I always felt under Jurgen Klopp, Anfield Fortress, we're made to be a home team. It's very early days. It's a relatively small sample size. Arne Slot, Liverpool look like they're set up to be really good on the road. I always felt Jurgen's team not so much that. They were a great counter-attacking team, and the best moments sometimes came. Listen, we had fabulous moments, but it does feel like Slot's Liverpool, like it might be what Chloe said with the style of play. They feel like they might be better equipped to go into these hostile atmospheres and get something, because they're less emotional. I think that's fair to say. The derby's always emotional. I sometimes think that we never dealt with that. Old Trafford, the same under Jurgen sometimes. It feels like Slot's Liverpool are a bit more mature, and they don't get dragged into that kind of thing, because like I say, we have had tougher ways and relatively escaped from them. So do you put anything into that going into this 3 big ones in the next couple of weeks, that this might be a different Liverpool on the road than what we're used to in the past?
Yeah, for me, definitely, yeah. And it's a collective, it's a combination of all the things you guys just mentioned there, really. It's definitely the style of play. I think Slot's controlled, more metronomic approach to football, and just having players that are comfortable in possession and just allowing this thing to come out of atmospheres is absolutely very, very useful on the road. I think Klopp's football, and the fact he fed into the emotion of football more often than not, heavy metal, fill-a-minute style, fed into atmospheres away from home more often than not, and they got more up for it than we could do, because obviously we didn't have the crowd in our favour at times as well, and it just became a battle really from minute one. And often it felt like our highest moments on the road came from counter-attacks. You mentioned there's one against West Ham, wasn't there? Yeah. But it often felt like it was late winners more often than not, didn't it? Whereas in this side now, it's not. It's we go 1-0 up, we go 2-0 up second half, and the jobs are good sometimes. So, yeah, it definitely stands us in more promise. Instead, I agree with Chloe again, though. I think we haven't quite worked out what it's like to be a home team yet. Certainly the fans haven't. Anyway, I think the side have got it more or less sussed. But I made references a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of feeds into what we're saying here as well. Under Jurgen Klopp, we were great underdogs all the time. And whenever the odds were stacked against us, we thrived in those circumstances. Under Slot, he's made us into better favourites. I don't think, again, the Anfield crowd quite got it just yet. I think that will come in time. But yeah, in terms of the away form, I think looking at the fixtures, obviously Everton to start with, then Villa and City, like if you are going to be better home or away, it's a good time to be better away from home, like, you know what I mean? Because that is almost as tough as it gets, I think.
Can I just, you don't like predictions?
No, don't even ask me.
You don't mind?
I don't mind, no.
5 games in 15 days.
How many points?
How many points do you think they're going to get?
13.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So do I.
I think we draw 2.
Do you?
So 11.
Which
My
ones?
maths is crap.
I think we draw...
I can just see us drawing against
I agree with your point, by the way, Abby. Sorry, the momentum, like anything is possible post Everton. Win this first one, possibilities
Carries
endless there.
you.
Yeah, I think so.
11. Okay, that's fine. You don't have to name your names, that's fine.
I'll go with that.
Abs.
I'll go with you. Yeah, I'll
13.
go with you.
I think
Girls
we're
stick
going to...
together,
I'm not going to
yeah.
name
I'll
the
stick
games
with
yet, but I
them.
think I think 13.
If we
you
go
have to-
13, I'm not going to say it because I'm not
I think we
stupid,
draw
but
with
I
City.
think
I think we draw with City.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Who knows where the team's going to be, but I've got Villa away.
I think
Villa and
Have you got Villa? I think the fact that City being one thing in itself, and where the game falls feels really, really tough. In the run of 5, that being the 4th one,
Yeah, no,
you've had
that's
to
not
go,
very
go,
good.
and go.
Suppose they play Madrid.
And then
They go Madrid.
They've got
Yeah, but
Madrid
we've got
beforehand.
Villa.
Yeah.
Everton.
No,
Wolves, you know what I mean? Like,
It isn't easy. It is tough. But
is
again,
that the second leg of
The second
Madrid?
leg.
First one's
So
tomorrow.
hopefully they get knocked out of that.
on pens.
Then we,
On pens.
oh,
They're
extra
going into
time,
deflated.
pens. Would love it.
City listen, I know City have had huge frailties and huge problems this season.
still
Obviously,
dangerous.
they've got something like a semblance of
Could
the
I
previous
sorry,
self-back.
could I bring
Go
it
on.
up? We've got a comment here from Douglas. Drawing 2 is diabolical.
That feels
Wow.
a stretch.
Diabolical
It's not
for Liverpool to
diabolical.
draw. Man said that's
Honestly, if
Lads, are you looking at the fucking result? Fixtures?
diabolical's a bit much. It might open a door for Arsenal because they've only got a couple of games, but it's not diabolical.
well, we made the point. Was it us that were saying earlier on that like there's a swing in terms of the amount of games played over this
Once we
period,
play
isn't
Aston Villa, we'll then have the game in hand because that's been brought
The other way
forward.
around.
That's been so we'll equal their game against Everton. We'll both play at the weekend. We play Wolves, they play Leicester,
And then we'll go.
and then we'll get Aston Villa while they're off effectively. So then we
So
will
in
have that
terms of
game in hand.
points, it might even be bigger than what we're talking about
Yeah,
here. You know what I mean?
there's a chance it gets to 12.
And then their
game in
game in
hand.
hand is like,
But that's what you were
turning
saying.
around and
Their
getting,
game- but their game in
it's
hand- yeah.
12 and not
Their
9.
game in hand comes when we're in the League Cup final, and they're not.
Who did they play for that game in hand is what I'd like
Chelsea.
to know.
Is it?
Ooh.
So the League Cup final, when we're in the League Cup final, they're playing Chelsea because there's a tour
In London.
In London. Because there's a no. Cause I was going to say that because there's something about the kick-off times of our game. Like they were talking about like a
right,
League Cup final, so
Okay.
it doesn't clash with that game. But that's massive. But that's right. It goes both ways. We'll find out in 15 days. It's a massive 15 days. Stick around. We're not going anywhere here. Well, we are.
We are. We won't be here in a minute on this channel.
We're physically staying in the studio. We're going to a different platform. We will be doing the Biased Football Podcast over on Redmen Plus. We're talking about Ange Postecoglou and Tottenham. We're talking about the FA Cup and no VAR. Was that a good thing or was it a bad thing? Everton, we're going to speak about them. 30 years without a trophy. Arsenal, yet more injury problems. A little bit on the Champions League again, which is back this week for everybody except us. Thanks to Dan. Thanks to Chloe. Thanks, Abby, for coming as our special guest. You've been fabulous.
Enjoyed that.
Thanks all you guys for watching or listening to the Redmen Originals. Come and join us on Biased over on Redmen Plus. See you all soon.